We will now call our meeting to order, and I will ask Trustee Geddes to lead us with a flag salute. Somewhere. Oh.
Salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And he was a music teacher?
Thank you so much. Board, I will ask if, after looking at the agenda, if anyone has any changes or edits to it. Hearing none. Okay, thank you. Next up, we will move on to item number 6, our superintendent report.
Yes, good evening, everybody, and thanks so much for coming. We're really excited to have both Bristow Middle School and Pioneer Elementary School students here to present to us. So I'm going to start, and then we're going to go right into them. And so one of the things that I'd like to do before each meeting is take an opportunity just to show off some of the things that have taken place since the last meeting. I want to thank Mrs. Petty and the ladies of the Heritage High STEP team for coming out and performing for our students at Adams. That was a great treat. And I also want to acknowledge some great photos up here from some of our performers that we're going to see in just a little bit from our oratorical festival that was put on by the Pioneer Elementary Parents Club. So we're really proud of you, and we can't wait to hear and see some of you. I was able to go out and visit a great Special Olympics event that was hosted at Adams Middle School for multiple districts. And I really want to acknowledge Ms. Human, Mrs. Thornhill, Mrs. Varnum, Mr. Fallon, and Mrs. Brainerd for all of their work in setting this up, because this event was originally supposed to be outside. And when the rain came, they had to make some last minute adjustments. And it was still a fantastic day for kids. And I want to thank Mrs. Williams-Rogers and Mr. Geddes for joining us that day. It was really great to have board members out there seeing that. I had a lot of fun visiting a 3rd grade classroom at Cray Elementary. This is Miss Parsons' class, and they were doing planetary science books. And so I learned a lot being in there, but these were two of the kids that shared with me some of their projects they were doing. I want to acknowledge Miss Jenkins out at Edna Hill Middle School in her computer science class. She's working with microbits, and these are students that created their own custom racing cards and made their own remote controls using radio signals. So great job to them out there. I want to take a minute to thank all of the staff members, the parents, the community members, the board members who participated in our strategic action planning nights that took place over a couple of evenings in February. It takes a lot of people, and there's a lot of time, and we were there till late at night, but we really got a lot of great input, and the process will continue going forward, but I want to acknowledge all those people. Bristow Bears had a glow rally, an after-school rally, which sounded pretty fun back on February 24th. So thanks to everybody who helped make that happen. I want to thank Leosha for coming out and working with the Edna Hill School restorative justice student leaders and helping them prepare their circle and improving their practices that they're doing. We really appreciate your partnership with that. This is the Gold Rush and California history projects that were presented in Mrs. Conrad's class out at Mary Casey Black. So as their 4th graders are working through their learning of California history. And then it's also Odyssey of the Mind time of year. So that's a really fun time. Our schools are some of the most active in the state in Odyssey of the Mind. And so these are just some of the teams here you can see from Edna Hill and Ron Nunn and Mary Casey Black and Marsh Creek. And then continuing on, another Ron Nunn team, another Marsh Creek team, another Mary Casey Black team. So, and we found out that we have, it used to be that there was one state final, but California is so big that they split it up into 2 state finals. So there's a Southern California, but the Northern California state finals. So you had to place 1st or 2nd within your division. So we have 2 teams from Marsh Creek, a team from Mary Casey Black, a team from Adams, and 2 teams from Edna Hill Middle. So I really want to acknowledge and congratulate them. If they place at the state finals, then they'll go on to the world finals, which is either in Michigan or Iowa. It rotates back and forth. So I'm not sure that I know which one at this point, but congratulations to them. I want to thank Ms. Shaw from Heritage High School and the Black Student Union who came out to partner with Adams advisory classes in celebration of Black History Month and build that partnership between high school and middle school. We appreciate that. I also want to acknowledge all of our librarians. We finished Read Across America Week back at the end of February. This is Ms. Mara from Brentwood Elementary. One of the neat things that she set up was a book exchange where students could come in and get a new book to take home and keep for their very own. And so she was also keeping track of all the books that kids read. And I think that Mr. Rolfs has to dress up with as a character, but I'm not sure that I remember that. Mr. Rolfs, is that correct? Did they pick the character? Unicorn. A unicorn. Okay. All right. We'll look forward to the pictures. So I love this picture. We talked last meeting about the passing of Mary Casey Black teacher Ceci Martinez, and this was the Guerin staff who came out and dressed in pink and took a picture and sent sort of a message of hope across to the Mary Casey Black staff, and I really appreciate both staffs for their strength and their passion and their compassion. Continuing on with Read Across America, this is author Rochelle Burke, and one of her books is Treehouse in a Storm that she talked about. But Loma Vista and Pioneer and Marsh Creek worked together, and they brought her out to do interactive assemblies and projects and small groups with students. So a great opportunity for them to interact with an author. And I want to thank Sydney Lopez, who's the librarian at Marsh Creek, for helping to set that up. Big time origami workshop that took place at Harvest Grove Virtual Academy. So fun to see all their creations in their underwater aquariums there. This I love too for Read Across America Week. It's typical to invite some local dignitaries or parents or people in the community, but Loma Vista had some of their 5th grade leadership students go in and be guest readers in the 1st grade classroom. So I thought that was a great idea. This was a neat project that I saw when I was out at Brentwood Elementary. So Miss Mara, the librarian who we saw a couple slides ago, she did a project where students did these huge posters about their favorite books. And then what happened was they posted them all outside. So it was sort of like a walking wall of recommendations that students could go up and see. And luckily she was able to post them within the couple days that it didn't rain. And so they were up there for a little while. So hopefully some students found some new books. I want to thank Trustee Dudek for coming in and reading a book at Brentwood Elementary. What if everybody did that? I understand that Trustee Dow Jensen did as well. So thank you both for making time to come out and read for our classes. We appreciate it, and I know the classes got a kick out of it. Thought this was a neat lesson that Miss Levin's class at Mary Casey Black did, learning about the very first African-American principal dancer for the American Ballet Theater, Misty Copeland. And so students got to learn about her and talk about how they showed perseverance. So wonderful opportunity. If you're squeamish, this might not be the slide for you, but this group called Save Nature brought out bug friends, is what they called them, to the Cray 1st grade classrooms. And so I heard the beetle was the best received, but some of those, there's a millipede there that looks pretty big. So very popular sort of reverse field trip there. And then I also want to acknowledge our food services department tradition on on Dr. Seuss's birthday to have green eggs and ham for all of our students that are feeling adventurous out there. So these are some of the students from Rhonda and Loma Vista and other schools. Unfortunately, like I said, they were out before I was able to get any. I want to thank the Guerin Parents Club and their PTA because on February 28th, this room was a book bingo event. So great opportunity for families to come out and be together. And also some of the prizes that they walked away with in addition to book bingo was Kindle Fire. So some digital books, great opportunity. I was able to walk on the art bus. I think is that earlier this week? I think that was earlier this week. Mr. Hatfield's 5th graders were out there. They were learning about Van Gogh and doing Van Gogh inspired paintings. That was a lot of fun and they were enjoying it. So thank you to the Parents Club out at Marsh Creek for putting that on. And then Marsh Creek is also continuing their work on community building circles. And so this is Miss Saylor's 3rd grade class talking about what they need from each other to be good learners. So appreciate the work that they're doing in that. And then I also want to acknowledge retired teacher Cindy McMillan, who has stepped up to teach music at Brentwood Elementary while we continue to search for a permanent teacher. So Miss McMillan retired several years ago out of Ron Nun and is doing a great job out there, and we love having her back. A couple of acknowledgments. This is Garin Elementary SDC teacher Lori Gennard. She was selected by our special education local planning area community advisory committee, and during the same time as this meeting, there's a special presentation where they're honoring her tonight as a local award winner. So I want to congratulate her. And then also last meeting, we saw all of the employees of the year from across the district, but we just recently announced our district employees of the year. So Onan is our hardworking warehouse driver who you see at every school all the time. And so he's an amazing, amazing employee, and we're so lucky to have him. Elizabeth McGinn teaches in the Learning Center here at Garin Elementary. So just such a talented teacher that works with so many students to try to get them pushing forward. And then Kat Weber is our Adams lead secretary who does a great job making people feel welcome and part of the Adams family when they come in that office, and then does so much behind the scenes to keep them running. And you might, I put the little C3PO and R2D2 on there to remind myself that they're all going to be honored at our district dinner on May the 4th. So that's how I'm remembering that. So I couldn't figure out a way to make it pretty on the slide, so I already had it. So anyway, so that's why I got that. And congratulations to all of them and all of our award winners. And that is my report for tonight. And so with that, if it's okay, I'd like to transition to Stacy Smith and
Doctor, can you hold up 1 minute?
Oh yeah, sure.
So Dr. Eaton's being modest too. He was also picked as the superintendent of the year.
Oh.
So I'd like to acknowledge that too. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, can I go now? Okay, so and then let's see. So Bristow Middle School is here. Mrs. Perales, you want to introduce your team here?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Principal Perales, back again here. Hello. Welcome this evening. We have a presentation about highlighting our video productions program at Bristow Middle School. And so we brought many of our amazing video production students. We have a few parents, and we have our amazing video productions teacher, Miss Stacy Smith. And so without further ado, I really quickly, our video productions program is pretty cool because it utilizes technology to enhance school culture. One way they do this is through the Friday video that they show every Friday in our advisory classes. Every advisory class shows it, and it really highlights a lot of the cool things about Bristow and really reinforces and connects students. So I wanted to start us off today by showing one of our Friday videos, or clips from some of our Friday videos. And then I'll have the kids talk a little bit.
Never going down, don't wait for the drop. What is your name? My name is Garden. What is Unified Sports? Unified sports is a way for students of all abilities to play sports and have fun together. What sport are we currently getting signed for? Unified sports we're currently getting is bowling. Who should we contact for signups? Miss Sanchez.
Extra assistance on your homework? Do you want to get better grades? Fear not. I have a thing for you. Homework club. Every day of the week from 7:45 to 8:30 a.m. in this material. You can come to get extra help on your homework and to get yourself the grades you always want. If you want assistance on a specific subject, consider asking your teacher if they have help hours. If they don't, you can still ask any other teacher teaching that subject for their help hours if you need help. So look. I'm with. What's your name? I'm with. You're Bobby? Dulce, Brentwood, Logan, Michaela, Grace. Okay, Pepsi or Coke? Okay, go ahead, what's it?
2,000 years.
Pepsi or Coke? Coke. What's the difference? So like Coke? Coke. Coke. Coke.
Fanta.
I'm with Adrian. Pepsi or Coke? Neither. Coke. If you could choose any person ever to be your sibling, who would it be?
Hello. Hello, my name is Amy Latanashun, and I am presenting the first slide, which is the overview of the BMS Productions program. So basically, what does productions mainly focus on? The video productions program creates a Friday video each week, which is shown in all advisory classes on almost every Friday. These videos highlight the best parts about Bristol and the campus's community and culture. It is a student-led message that strives to promote Bristol Rocks all across the school. And if you do not know what Bristol Rocks is an acronym that stands for respect, opportunity, character, knowledge, and spirit.
My name is Grace, and in our Friday video, we love to advertise how we can help other students, such as homework club, and we share the meeting times and the dates. We like to post information about the benefits of quitting tobacco. That's a very big one we like to do. We like to show how our school counselors can help both at home and at school, and we just love to getting Bristow students the help they need.
Productions also recognizes and promotes the mini clubs, sports, and activities at school. Some of those activities that we take photos of and tell students about the meeting times are Dungeons and Dragons, Garden Club, Drama Club, Unified Bowling, Lunchtime Soccer, and with Dodgeball, and very much more.
Hello, my name is Jared. In productions, along with our Friday video, we make public service announcements, more known as PSAs. In these PSAs, we cover topics such as how we can act around campus, national holidays, and awareness concepts like Black History Month and Women's History Month. We are also trying to spread a good message while trying to entertain.
My name is Brandon, and some examples of the public service announcements that we make are like Stand Up to Bullying, monthly community celebrations, which include like Women's History Month, Black History Month, stuff like that. And there's also the Bristow Cares, which is the suicide awareness, hashtag I Can Help, Say Something, the inspirational quotes, and Reinforcing Rocks. PSAs show our creativity to encourage fellow students at Bristow to do their best and be informed.
Hello, my name is Danny. Every week we love to showcase students who are following Bristow Rocks via our Bobs. Teachers send in a list of students they've seen following rock behavior on campus, and then we showcase them in a slideshow, and yeah.
Hello, my name is Lucas. With our interviews here at Bristow, a teacher and or staff member is highlighted each week. Students are also interviewed about different activities and or achievements they have done inside and outside of school. We also interview teachers and advertise some of the things we do at the school. For example, we interviewed our drama teacher after a play. This shows students the activities they might not know about that are going on at school.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stacy Smith. I am the productions teacher here at Bristow. I've had the pleasure of teaching at Bristow for 19 years, and this is my 5th year teaching the video productions class. I took over for Mrs. Jeffrey, who teaches at Brentwood L. So I've been teaching there for 5 years. This is an elective that has a lot of student interest, and we currently offer 1 section. Students come to the class with different levels of experience. Some of them make videos for fun. Some of them have their own YouTube channels. Some of them come with no experience, but they all come with a desire to learn and create and want to show how amazing our Bristow campus is. We start off the year learning how to operate our cameras, how to plan videos with storyboards, and how to edit the videos using Adobe Premiere Pro through school and personal projects. The rest of the school year is dedicated to our Friday videos and personal projects. Students plan out the videos related to current and upcoming events. We use a 2-week look-ahead schedule to plan and complete our videos to meet the deadlines. I know my class is just so much more than preparing students for video productions. We work as a team every day helping each other out. We push ourselves creatively to keep student engagement and connections. And we have met all of our deadlines this year. I'm so proud of my students.
Oh gosh, I guess I have to talk. Okay, my son's Brandon. He's in the productions class. And what I like about this class for my student and all of the students is that if you're not the most outgoing student, which he's not naturally outgoing, but this class has taught him to be connected to the school, to see what's going on, to put himself out there more than he normally would. My oldest son also, the same thing. Not that guy. He's not the friendly guy, but he learned how to be connected to his school, his peers, the community as part of productions. And to boot, I have to thank Ms. Smith because Robert is also a kid that has his own YouTube channel and is almost being monetized. Oh. Thank you, Ms. Smith and Productions for teaching him those skills to get him to where he wants to go.
Yeah.
Right, so thank you very much to our amazing students and teachers and parents. So the impact of our program is, each week our students take time to create these Friday videos along with other video projects. There's 23 students total in the video productions class, but there's a lot of interest for next year. So we're hoping to expand. And every student on the Bristow campus gets to see the Friday video. So that's a huge impact on our campus. It's something that we can say we all do. All right, so thank you all for your time.
Yeah. So I want to, recognize this was a really great presentation. Shout out to the production team. I would love for all the students to line up and face the audience and the camera over there, and I'll be passing out.
Stacy, I've got one question. Can we expect a letter from the Beach Boys?
So I'll pass these out. Now we need your name. Danny? Amy? Great.
Well, we normally only get one student presentation, but today we're blessed with two. And so I want to thank the Pioneer Elementary Parent Club Diversity and Equity Committee, and I want to invite them up. And you guys ready? All right. Thank you, Ms. Osevemu.
Thank you. Thank you. Testing. Everyone can hear me? Amazing. All
so.
right. Well, great evening, everyone. We are super happy and humbled to be here this evening representing and speaking on behalf of the Pioneer Parents Club. I'm Twyla Long, and I co-lead, co-chair Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion along with Yanira Canizales-Wandera, who is actually traveling this evening. And I'm also very joyously joined by Tamara. And I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hi, good evening. I'm Tamara Osirimu. I get to be part of the DEI chair of the Parents Club, and we're so excited that 2 weeks ago now, in February, we had the opportunity and had the blessing from Mr. McClure and the entire team to host a Black History Month oratorical. We had about 200 folks show up. We had a DJ, we had a food truck, and we had our incredible students, who we have a little snippet of tonight, present pieces that spoke to them. And then we also had the opportunity to have 3 students dance, including one Pioneer alum. So it was just an amazing opportunity, an evening of parent and student celebration, and an opportunity to honor Black history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just to add on to that, what was so impactful that this was the first event that we intentionally really leaned into resurrecting, reliving, and celebrating Black excellence. And as opposed to, us giving a presentation, we really partnered with these amazing students, 5 of which that are here this evening. We really appreciate all of the advocacy and all of the championing that we received from the staff and the parents and the community who really showed up and just rallied around this incredible event. And so just really the essence of an oratorical is really stepping into the shoes of those pioneers, those Black pioneers who have made a difference in helping us to remember that Black history is American history. So we're so proud of the event. It absolutely went viral, if I could say, definitely spread, which was amazing. And that's exactly the type of, intentional work that we have been doing over the course of this year. And we encourage all of you to check out our website. We have partnered so closely with our DE&I Parents Club, as well as our members, that is representative of diverse parents, to really understand the voice and the differences and really celebrating those differences. And we have also leaned in on revamping on what we look like as a committee. So our vision, our values, our mission statement that really truly does reflect the type of work and the intentionality that we're doing from here as well as the future. So all that to say, we're super happy to be here with all of you. And without further ado, I think we would love to be able to invite up our first presenter. So starting with Alana.
Hi, my name is Alana Osirimu. I am 10 years old and I go to Pioneer Elementary School. I will be reciting Phenomenal Woman by Maya Angelou. Pretty woman wonder where my secret lies. I'm not cute or built to suit a fashion model size. But when I start to tell them, they think I'm telling lies. I say, it's in the reach of my arm, the span of my hip, the stride of my step, the curl of my lip. I am a woman, phenomenal woman, that's me. Now you understand just why my head is not bowed, or why I do not jump or shout about, or have to talk real loud. When I walk past you, I ought to make you proud. I say, it's in the bend of my hair, the click of my heels, the palm of my hand, the need of my care. I'm a woman, phenomenal woman, that's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Alana.
Letter from a Birmingham jail by Martin Luther King. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an unescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. We know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. Thank you for having me here. Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. Out of the huts of history, shame, I rise. Up from the past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and tide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise into the daybreak that is wondrously clear. I rise. Bring the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slaves. I rise, I rise.
Hi, my name is Jack Monday. I'm in first grade in Miss Purcell's class. This poem is called Warrior by Vanessa Bramley Newton. I am a warrior, willing to fight the good fight, respectfully, with humanity and lovingly, with all the kindness inside of me. In my own unique way, I am a warrior, willing to fight the good fight.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Avanish Tiwari, and I'm a 5th grader at Pioneer Elementary. Today, I will be reciting sonnets by James Weldon Johnson. My heart, be brave, and do not falter so, nor utter more that deep, despairing wail. Thy way is very dark and drear, I know, but do not let thy strength and courage fail. For certain as the raven-winged night is followed by the bright and blushing morn, thy coming morrow will be clear and bright. 'Tis darkest when the night is furthest worn. Look up, out, beyond surrounding clouds, and do not in thine own gross darkness grope. Rise up, casting off thy hindering shrouds. Cling thou to this and ever-inspiring hope. Though thick the battle and though fierce the fight, there is a power making for the right.
All right.
Thank you for having us.
Have them stand up so they can face the audience, so they can face faces. I'll call your name. Come on. Avanish.
While Stephanie's sitting down, I was lucky enough to come to the rehearsal, and wow, you guys did amazing. I am so impressed with all the work that you did. That was super impressive. I just want to take time. The best part of our meetings is always when our students come, and I just want to say a special thank you to Bristow Middle School and to Pioneer Elementary for coming. You guys were definitely the highlight of the meeting, and we so appreciate parents bringing them out.
Yes, 100%.
Real quick before you guys go, you said that we could check out your website. Can you tell us what that website is? Thank you.
Right.
And Grace, to answer your question, 100% Pepsi, not Coke.
All right. Just before we move on to item number 7, just want to check in if there's any board member comments or committee reports. No. Okay, perfect.
Those parents that have students could leave. It's not going to hurt our feelings.
All right, so now we're going to move on to agenda item number 7, which is public comments. And at this time, the public is permitted to address the school board on items that are on the consent calendar, requests for future agenda items, and items that are not on the agenda. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per person. And while we encourage your comments, unfortunately, state law prevents us from discussing items that are not on our meeting agenda. And public comments can be made at this time or during the appropriate agenda item. Can I have a motion to open up public comments?
I'll make a motion. We open public comment.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so I have 2 speakers cards, and I will start with the first. I believe it's Jackie Maresca.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Jackie Maresca, and my son is a 3rd grader at Pioneer. I'm here to talk to you regarding the proposed school boundary changes, which would move my neighborhood near Sand Creek in Minnesota to Marsh Creek Elementary, beginning with the 2024-25 school year. Is that supposed to start, or am I okay? Okay. I know that another elementary school is needed and the current boundaries need to be adjusted. However, I'm asking you to consider the social emotional effects these changes will have on Pioneer's current students and find some type of compromise that will allow them to stay at Pioneer through the end of 5th grade. Our children have been through so much the last few years. For 3rd graders like my son, their kindergarten year was cut short due to COVID when the schools closed. 1st grade was distance learning, and most of last year, honestly, was spent just getting used to being back in the classroom in person. So this really is the first normal year my son and his classmates have had. And it's really too much to disrupt their lives once again by having them switch schools. This will be especially stressful for students like my son who will be entering 5th grade in 2024, since they will change schools again the following year when they move on to middle school, which I don't know if you guys have older kids, but it's another huge adjustment. My family has been at Pioneer since 2011, and like so many families, we've invested countless volunteer hours and fundraising dollars to help make Pioneer the great school that it is. Our children feel comfortable and safe there. They've gotten to know and love the teachers and staff. They've developed friendships, and along with their families, have contributed to Pioneer's culture and overall sense of community. It's simply too much to ask them to give all of that up and switch schools, especially since Marsh Creek is going to be in transition with so many of its current students moving to the new school and then new students coming in from 3 different schools all across Brentwood. The other issue that I'm concerned about is the fact that these boundary changes aren't going to go into effect until the 2024 school year. So that means students like my son are going to spend the next year and a half worrying about the fact that they have to change schools, which is going to cause unnecessary stress and anxiety, not only for our kids, but also for the rest of our families. I know this is a difficult decision, and no matter what you decide, you can't please everyone. However, in the interest of the social emotional well-being of Pioneer's current students, I'm asking you to consider a compromise and give these students the option of remaining at Pioneer through the end of 5th grade. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker card I have is Rebecca Delgado.
Hello, board, and thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. I am here tonight to address the lack of ongoing funding for the intervention programs being offered at the elementary schools across the district. I am lucky enough to have been able to witness the effects of the programs at Marsh Creek as both a parent and an educator. Both of my children have benefited from the interventions being offered by our amazing staff. My daughter started kindergarten last year lacking confidence in her phonics skills. She was placed in a program with our Room 5 staff and quickly started mastering the skills that she was unable to perform independently. By the end of kindergarten, she was able to name all of her letter names and sounds and was starting to read CVC words. We were so excited to hear that she was going to be starting off this school year already grouped with the intervention staff. She quickly became a confident reader and was excited to come home each day to show off her new skills. Not only did the ladies in Room 5 turn my girl into an avid reader, but they gave her the confidence to always strive to be the best she can. As a 4th grade teacher at Marsh Creek, I can honestly say that I would be unable to do my job to the best of my ability without this intervention program. The amount of growth that I have seen from every single student that has been working in the intervention groups has been phenomenal. These students are filling in the learning loss holes that were created from distance learning and beyond. I have had students start the year at a whole grade behind and are now reading on grade level. The students who have attended the various math groups are getting the opportunity to have more hands-on time manipulatives and get the individual attention needed to ask questions and make connections necessary to have a concrete understanding of the skills being taught. The kids are coming back into my class from their intervention time wanting to show off their skills to their peers and myself. These intervention staff members do more than just help it fill in academic holes for these kids. They make sure that each kid knows that they have someone who believes in them. To me, that is worth just as much as the skills these children walk away with. Without the ladies of Room 5 at Marsh Creek, we would not have nearly as many confident on-grade level students. I am so appreciative of everything they do on a daily basis. By cutting the funding to this program, many students will be losing access to not only interventions that they so desperately need, but also to the social emotional support that is offered by the staff running this program. These students' social emotional health and well-being is not only improved by the feeling of success and confidence that is built in Room 5 each day. Thank you, and I hope that you will think more about the funding that is being offered to the schools.
Thank you. Next speaker card I have is April Drummond.
Good evening, board. Thank you for your time and dedication and for the opportunity to speak this evening. I just wanted to address the boundary changes and asking for your consideration. My family moved here and my older boys attended Pioneer. They're now at Bristow. And now I have two little ones, kinder and first, who are in Pioneer as well. That is their school. And to explain to them that they will be kicked out, for lack of a better word, is a very tough thing to do. My first grader, who started during COVID, hated computer school, hated it. This is his first year that he actually feels like he belongs, like he loves school. He's excelling in his class. And I don't want to have to tell him that he has to switch school. When we first moved here, we were renting in Brighton Station, and we moved there specifically so our kids could walk to school. Our older boys at that time didn't get into Pioneer. So even though we moved within the boundaries, we didn't have a spot. One of our boys got in, and one of our other kids was pushed over to Loma Vista. We rolled the dice. They actually both got into Pioneer a week prior to school. So we understand, boundaries do have to change, but also understand that those that come in allow our children to finish. And then at that time, anyone that moves into our neighborhood now that's being switched, then bring those students over to Marsh Creek. I like to close in just saying that part of Pioneer's vision and their beliefs is we believe in supporting the whole child, academic, social, emotional, and physical. So please consider my children and all of our children in supporting their social and emotional and physical as being a part of Pioneer and allowing them to stay there. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker card I have is Anitra Simpson.
Hi, thank you guys for having me. My name is Anitra Simpson. I know a lot of you guys I've helped out in a lot of different ways for the school district, and I'm here to talk about the redistricting, the boundaries. And for me, I'm just asking that the board consider reducing Pioneer's numbers to a number that would still accommodate our children. In the proposal that you guys share, the projected enrollment, currently the number is 946. In 2024, you guys are asking that number go to 762. I'm proposing that you guys consider increasing that number to 823. And at that point, you wouldn't have to uproot these children that have been at Pioneer their entire academic careers. To piggyback on what the other parents are saying, this is their school. They've been there their entire life. They've gone through this pandemic. They are finally settled, and this is where they should stay. They deserve better than what this proposal is outlining, and I just ask that you guys reconsider. And if I need to sit on that committee, I'm happy to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the last speaker card that I have is Carolina
I sat here and watched the video productions team at Bristow. My kids are at Bristow. And I have to tell you, one of the things that they did not mention that happens is that you have all kinds of different learners in school. You have kids that can read and retain. You have kids that can hear and retain. And you have kids that need to see to retain and some variation thereof. So my son has ADHD and autism, so the video productions are great. Before they started doing this last year, I would ask him, so is there anything going on at school? No. No? No. Isn't your friend in a play? No. Oh, wait, yeah, there is a play. Wait, when is it? I don't remember. Because it was over the speakers, and he heard but didn't see and didn't have anything to read, so it just went right out. So that is one of the also wonderful things that happens with that production program. I went to see Aladdin at the new theater, and those production kids work hard. They work hard to make sure that we get to hear and the students perform their best. So they're leaving it all on the stage, and the production students are making sure that we get to see it all. So big, strong supporter of this program. I think it would be wonderful if the other junior highs, if they're not already doing something like this, would do something like this in their schools to their students. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I don't think we have any other speaker cards, so.
I'll make a motion. We close public comment.
All right, I have a first.
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carried. Next up, agenda item number 8 are consent items.
If nobody has any items to pull or address, I move that we approve consent items 8.0 through 8.5.
I have a first.
Second.
All right, I have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Moving on to agenda item number 9, starting with 9.0. Remind me, I'm opening.
Yeah. So Mr. Bowen's going to come up here in just a second.
Okay.
Good evening, Board of Education. We are excited to be able to bring 4 programs forward for public review. These are programs that we've been wanting to review and adopt for a number of years now, and it has been postponed due to COVID and some other reasons. So we have an elementary science program, a middle school health program, a middle school social studies program, and a family life program. Important for me to note is that this starts the public hearing and review process, which continues through April 12th. All 4 of these programs are the recommendation of teacher committee groups. So they are the ones that are recommending these programs for adoption and implementation. And they will be available to be reviewed through my department. So if anyone's interested, they can contact the C&I department, and we will accommodate and make sure they can review the materials.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. So these, the public hearings are opened, and so we did a motion, a second, and a vote to open each one, and they stay open until the next board meeting when they close at that point.
All right, can someone
I
make a
move that
motion?
we open public hearing on items 9.0, 9.1, 9.2, and 9.3.
Second. Second.
All right, I got a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Moving on to item number 10, starting with 10.0, the report out of closed session, and we'll go to 10.1, which is, I have that here, right? In the matter of the recommendation that the district expel student number 2000424, I need a motion on this pending action.
Before we go on, that's a typo, actually. It's actually student 02-2023-07.
Oh,
As stated in the agenda.
It was,
got it. So let me just thank you for the correction, and you are correct. So let's go ahead and, in the matter of the recommendation that the district expel student number 02-2023-07, I need a motion on this pending action.
I make a motion that student 02-2023-07 be expelled from the Brentwood Union School District for the remainder of the spring semester, after which time the student will be reviewed for readmission to the district, and that the board adopts the alternative education program referral, rehabilitation plan, and readmission process proposed by the administrative hearing panel. I further motion that the expulsion be suspended upon the student carrying out the terms of the rehabilitation plan, receiving designated school counseling, and attending the district's Harvest Grove Virtual Academy during the term of the suspended expulsion.
All right. I've got a motion.
Second.
That was the motion.
Yep, I have a motion and I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. All right, moving on to item number 10.2, expulsion of student number 02-2023-08.
I move that we accept the stipulated expulsion of student number 02-2023-08.
All right, I have a first.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Moving on to item number 10.3, the expulsion of student number 02-2023-09.
I move that we accept the recommendation of the stipulated expulsion of student 02-223-09.
I have a first.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Moving on to item number 10.4, our boundary update.
We have Mr. Calabrese and Mrs. Job that are going to lead that.
There we go. Good evening, board. I wanted to present to you tonight the feedback from the attendance boundary planning and give you a presentation on the parent feedback that we received both at the presentations that we gave, but also via email. So the purpose of our presentation tonight is to share community feedback, get board's input and direction for the final boundary decision on April 12th of this year. Sorry, you click, I'll talk. Why consider a boundary change? Opening new school in 24-25. Due to increasing growth, new developments coming into Brentwood, increasing student enrollment, and Pioneer Schools currently enrollment is at 958 students. So this chart will show you the enrollment projections with and without changes to the boundary. Brentwood Elementary in 24-25 without a boundary change will be at 884. With this boundary change will be at 854. Marsh Creek Elementary School 747 without a boundary change 582. Mary Casey Black 738 with a boundary change 697. The new school opening up at 496 students. Pioneer Elementary School in 24-25 without a boundary change 917 and with a boundary change 770. I want to point out that Pioneer School, 2 years in a row, the 5th grade class is larger than the next grade level, which is what's affecting its population. And Marsh Creek, there's a change in the numbers there due to the Pomelo development. When we were out at Loma Vista, a very sweet grandma pointed out to us that there was an error and that she was absolutely correct. And so we made the change to that, working with the demographer. And so that shifted the numbers there. The board made it very clear that they didn't want any parents surprised by this and to guide us to go out and to send out as much communication as possible. So not only did we go out to those sites, to Brentwood L, to Loma Vista, to Pioneer, and to Marsh Creek and Mary Casey Black, but also newsletters were sent out, mailings were sent out, dialers, and a geocode text. So families that were going to be directly impacted by a boundary change were sent a text to let them know about those meetings. Maps were put on our website as well as this presentation for today. and then also for the 12th. Just to review with the board, our board policy concerning making a boundary change. Board Policy 5116, minimize disruptions to existing schools boundaries as much as possible, create community schools, provide safe walking routes to school, allow capacity for future student enrollment growth, and balance enrollment between existing schools, including the number of students enrolled and student demographics. We want to review each map in the proposed boundary changes. This proposed boundary change map shows all of the boundary changes. And so right up here is, let me go to this map over here. This Liberty green color right here is the new school. So what we are currently calling Lone Tree School. The brown here is Pioneer, yellow being Loma Vista, and the blue being Marsh Creek, and the red Mary Casey Black. And those are the ones that are most affected. Brentwood L right here. This map shows all of the affected boundary change areas. Up on the top left-hand corner, you'll see this boundary change right here is going to the new school. This one here is going to from Pioneer to Marsh Creek. This one here from Mary Casey Black to Marsh Creek, and then the rest of the Mary Casey Black area there. So west of the railroad tracks, Pioneer to Lone Tree site, and then Marsh Creek, the Lone Tree large area on the top. And then I just want to capture that Minnesota neighborhood from Pioneer to Marsh Creek. So that as we look at the individual maps of the proposed boundary changes, this is from Brentwood L to Marsh Creek. This affects the neighborhood that is Curtis Lane, Lynn Drive, Broderick, and the apartments on O'Hara. This area here is Neroli on the north, as you can see, Anderson in the east, and then Grant on the south, and the railroad tracks to the west there. This map shows from Mary Casey Black to Marsh Creek, and the affected area is Lone Tree north, the Marsh Creek itself to the east, Sunset to the south, and then Brentwood Boulevard to the west. This is the area behind Big B Lumber, encompassing Homecoming Way, Bonita Way, Cerritos, and Coyote Lane. And then this map shows Pioneer to Marsh Creek and the new school. The top left-hand side there is Empire Road there, Lone Tree and the railroad tracks, and Neroli. And then development behind Winco Shopping Center. I'm sorry, that is the development behind the Winco Shopping Center. And then the bottom of this map is the Brower Lane neighborhoods, Minnesota area. The concerns that we heard from parents as we went out and the feedback that we received at our school sites at Brentwood Elementary, Loma Vista, Pioneer, Mary Casey Black, and Marsh Creek. We capture that not only in this presentation, but also you've received the emails that we received from parents and their concerns, and we shared that with you in the board packet tonight. Splitting the Pioneer neighborhood was of huge concern. Safety, walking, and riding to school was also a concern. Fifth graders in transitions, as you also heard tonight. Opening the new school as a TK5 or a TK8. The social emotional needs of students. After school daycare capacity is also a concern. Transfer priority for students who are currently at the school site. This area here shows in boundary the move from Pioneer to Marsh Creek and the neighborhood that it's split from some families remaining at Pioneer and some moving to Marsh Creek. The boundary line is Bower Road. East of Bower will go to Marsh Creek, west of it will go to Pioneer. Bower Way, Carlisle Drive, Landover Court, Country Glen, Windhaven turns into Chamomile and Sunflower, all split at the boundary line at Bower. And then the Miwok Park becomes the dividing line north of Sunflower and to the west. Other concerns that were raised is the sidewalk ends here, as you can see, for students going from Brentwood Elementary School to Marsh Creek. The sidewalk ends right here, and so this area is a future development for apartments. This is O'Hara, Chan Strawberries right over here. And so working with the city, this will eventually be widened to 4 lanes. They will build temporary asphalt sidewalks for bike and walking. Working with transportation regarding closest bus stops in this area. But to go around this area, if that is not done as far as the sidewalks are concerned, students would have to walk out to Brentwood Boulevard to Sand Creek and then to O'Hara. And that distance is about 1.4 miles. The current distance from Brentwood Elementary School from this area is 1 mile. The other concern we heard about safety and riding or walking to school is to Pioneer neighborhood, walking from Minnesota area to Marsh Creek and crossing safely. So in this particular case, students will have to go out to the trail here from this neighborhood, come around the railroad tracks, and then down the trail here and through the cul-de-sacs. It's about the same distance, 1.5 miles from Minnesota to Marsh Creek Elementary School, and then crossing O'Hara. From Minnesota to Pioneer, it's about the same distance of 1.5 miles, crossing Fairview, Empire, and the sum without sidewalks. This was measured basically from the Chamomile, Minnesota area there. The other concerns that we heard is fifth graders transitioning. Parents concerned that students will be transitioning twice. This group of students were significantly impacted by the pandemic as they started kindergarten online. Concerns about social and emotional impact to students. Parents were also concerned about safety to new school, including traffic, crosswalks, and sidewalks. And the City of Brentwood is working with USD to ensure safety throughout the first day of school, but also beyond. Working with the city to ensure that these things are in place. The school will open at 496 students, so it will be of a smaller size than our other schools. And so certainly there will be less traffic and less pedestrian traffic. I want to show you what the school will look like as far as ingress and egress to the school. So to give you an example here, this gray area here is a 10-foot wide sidewalk. This is Smith Lane. This is Big Basin. Lone Tree is actually out here. This is the Islamic Center. It has 3 loops going to the school. 3 crosswalks will be planned. Those are what you see in yellow here. One in front of the school, that's a stop. One here at Big Basin and Smith. And then one here at Big Basin and Lunger, and that will be a 3-way stop. Big Basin is 2 lanes. There'll be a right-hand turn lane from Big Basin onto Smith. Smith Lane will be 4 lanes at build-out, and the city plans to widen Lone Tree to 4 lanes, including stoplights. Parents were concerned about the new school as a TK5 or a TK8. The board has directed us to open the new school as a TK5. There is not a current plan to open it as a middle school. If that were to change, there would be significant process similar to this one to make the current boundary process that we're going through now. Parents also raised concern about the social and emotional needs of students, and parents brought up that their children feel connected to their current school. Parents concerned about the after-school care program that their children will be moving to and not have enough capacity. For our new school, we will be going out with a request for proposal, and typically Aim High or Sunshine House will apply for those as they have at our other school sites. For existing schools, there'll be more room due to the movement of students moving from those schools, creating more capacity in Aim High or Sunshine House. Parents raised questions about intra-district transfers, so that's within the district, inter-district transfers from without of the district. Parents asked if there could be a priority for intra-district transfers for students who are currently at the school site. Just to review our intra-district policy, our first priority is children of our district employees, of which there's about 77 inters, and intras, there's also inters that occur for our own employees. Students enrolled prior to March 1st who were displaced due to overcrowding. So those are students that have gotten displaced, and then we're trying to get them back to their home school. Siblings of currently enrolled students. All other students are residents of the school district but do not reside in the designated area for a requested school. Students enrolling after March 1st. Students enrolled in BSD who submit an intra-district transfer request during a second enrollment period. That enrollment period occurs between the end of March and end of May. And then inter-district transfers. Our inter-district transfer policy is BSD employees first and then families that work in the Brentwood. That's due to the Allen bill, that's law. Siblings, then childcare, homeless and foster youth, children that have been bullied in other schools outside of the district, resident families who move mid-year and stay for the remainder of the year. To give you a sense, inter-district transfers make up 435 students in our district. It's less than 5% of our overall population in the district. 77 of which of those are either BUSD or Liberty employees, and 110 from the Allen bill. About 197 of them are due to childcare. At this point, any board questions, direction, and discussion, and that we will continue to work with the board's direction and recommendations and develop a final plan that will come to you in April 12th.
Yeah, so thank you, Chris and Kirsten, for going out and collecting all that information. So the goal here was to present you with that information and to bring back directly the feedback from the community members as we went out. And so what we'd like now is your direction as we go forward. So when we bring back items for April, it'll have your direction captured in there.
All right, I'll start down there for any questions or comments.
Chris, can you go over the 1.5 mile thing again? It was a little, I'm not,
1.4.
the walking 1.5.
Yeah, the 1.5 miles?
Yeah,
Sure.
1.5, 1.5.
I think I went too far. I'm sorry. Yeah. No, it's Pioneer. So you're talking about this map here and being able to.
I'm just confused. Who would have to walk that far? I mean, they're walking because they can't cross the street safely? Is that the reason they're walking?
Chris, I think you were comparing the distance between walking
Correct.
to Pioneer versus Marshall.
The distance between walking from this neighborhood to Pioneer versus walking from this neighborhood to Marsh Creek. The issue from going from this neighborhood to Marsh Creek is the railroad tracks.
And we don't want them to cross.
How much does that increase the walk there?
It's about the same distance either way.
Okay.
Any other questions, Scott?
If there's not an actual crossing like at the extension of Grant, we cannot and should not encourage kids to go across the railroad track. We have a problem with it on Highway 4 as it is. Kids unfortunately will take the shortest route to the destination. And so we have to be very careful. And that's part of the problem. The extension of Grant would be really nice to have because that would change the flow of traffic, but we have to respect that sometimes you may live closer to this school, but to actually drive there, you have to drive farther.
Based on some of the comments that we received tonight, can you guys run a scenario where students that would be finishing 4th and 5th without being moved, how that would change the numbers at the different schools and provide us with that information prior to the next meeting?
Yeah, we certainly can.
Thank you.
Tweet.
With that being said, though, so let's say the third graders now, like some people said, they'll be 5th grade at that time. I mean, where do we draw the line, though? Because then when they're 5th graders, then we're going to have other 3rd graders that are going to, it just makes it, I mean, we would take care of, if we said that, it would take care of that group of 2 years, but then it's like we're never getting off the wheel type of thing.
Yeah, the other challenge with that is if you have a family that has a kindergartner, a 2nd grader, and a 5th grader, and if Lone Tree School doesn't open with a 5th grade, then that family is now going to 2 different schools in elementary school. So it does create another set of issues.
So just so I make sure, so Steve, I think what you were asking for is, could we run the numbers if we mandated everybody who was 4th and 5th grade to go, or if it was an option? Is that what you were asking? Okay, and so, but it would just be for, not like Scott saying it would just be for current students that would be 4th and 5th grade at the time the school was opening, as opposed to ongoing. Am I capturing that right? Just so I make sure that we get that, we bring that back.
I understand that we may not even have 5th grade at Lone Tree when we open, or do we?
Yeah, there'll be
plan K-5 for sure, or?
Yeah, there'll be
That's
2
what
classrooms.
the plan is now.
Okay.
There'll be 2
So-
classrooms.
2 classrooms?
Yeah, of 5th grade, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I mean, the other thing here too is we're kind of on a timeline that everything has to go perfectly too. Let's be honest. Weather, permits, any problems that were unforeseen. I mean, we'd like to have it open then. That would be wonderful. But I mean, if we started construction on a year like today, I mean, like, the weather has been and everything else. I mean, some of your students that are going to be in 5th grade could be in college by the time the weather's perfect. So,
I want to share that that's not the message that we're putting out there. The our plan at this point is to open the school on time. Certainly construction delays can happen, right? And we'll know as we get closer. Right now, I will tell you that our contractor is confident that we can make that. It's also important to remember that this it's typical for schools to be built in phases, right? So that the phasing requires the most important buildings get done in first, and because the school wouldn't be opening as a full-fledged, it would be under 500 students is what the plan is. That they believe they could make that target, and yet construction challenges do happen. Sure.
And you apparently have never had your kitchen remodeled. Okay.
All right. So Twee, you don't have any questions or comments. Okay. How about you?
No.
Okay. I have a couple. If there's an opportunity, if we could prioritize, so long as we have space, 5th grade intra-district transfers, just to maybe put an asterisk there. And then is there anything we can do so that Pioneer's neighborhood to keep Pioneer's neighborhood from being divided, like move the boundary line to all families west of Minnesota Avenue remaining at Pioneer?
Yeah, we can certainly explore that, absolutely. As well as look at the current intra language and see what we can do there to make that a priority.
Okay.
So Mrs. Williams-Rogers, so you're saying, because the current map has that go past Minnesota, so you're saying it would be, so west of Minnesota, you're asking for a scenario where west of Minnesota would still remain at Pioneer.
Correct.
And east of Minnesota would go.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Look at that. Okay, we can bring back that scenario.
Great. And then I know that having our students and families get to the new school safely is very important. And I don't know if you can speak to this now, but I would like to just know what we're doing with the city to ensure the new school is as safe as it can be for our students and families to travel to the new school.
We are currently developing a timeline with the city of Brentwood, and we've already begun meeting with them to work through that. So absolutely, we can come back with an update on that.
Thank you. I have no further questions. And so let me get my agenda. All right, so this is just an update, so no motion. So we can go ahead and.
No, those items that you requested will come back at the April, and it'll be presented as an action item at that point with options to consider.
Okay, thank you, Chris and Kirsten, for that update. Moving on to agenda item number 10.5, the approval of the second interim report.
Good evening, board. A few slides for you tonight. Here tonight to present the second interim budget. As you remember, we have really 4 budget cycles in the year for a district. We adopt the budget in June. The state does their work. We come back with a little update in 45 days. We do the unaudited actuals for the prior year, first interim in December and second interim in March. And that's where we are. We're at second interim. Really, second interim is a review of sort of what's going on this year and starting to look at next year. And this follows really the governor's release that occurs in January. And in January, the governor talked about a COLA, which I'll talk about a little later, where he's increased or proposed an increase to the COLA next year. And at this time, relative to what the governor proposed, there are no other funding specific issues that are specific to Brentwood that it would benefit Brentwood at this time. At this time, the state's now in negotiations, public hearings, both at the Senate and the legislature level, and they're working with the governor. We need to sort of let some other things happen. That'll happen there's a lot of material that will be covered. And currently, the COLA is based on the statutory COLA, and that really won't be released really till the end of May or in the end of April. So that will be incorporated into the governor's revise that he does in May. If you've read the news, the tax collections have been pushed out to October for the due deadline. So the state won't have really the full tax collection story to inform them for the next year. And we also know, if you watch the news, inflation and what's going on. Conversation that happens between now, May, and June. And I can say that, between now and June, there'll be a lot of information, a lot of conversation that goes on, and the story will change. And so, it's our job to keep you informed. Another piece that's important is what's going on with our enrollment. And if you're at the schools and you talk to the principals, the green line there shows that our enrollment is going up this year. And that's a positive thing. The black line just below it was our enrollment in 1920. And for 2021 and 2021 and 21-22 were both well below what our enrollment was in 1920. So we're finally catching up and exceeding that. And that's a good thing. But there's some catches in that I'll talk about. And are the kids coming to school. Remember, we're funded not on our enrollment, but the number of kids that are actually coming into class. It's called ADA, or average daily attendance. This is sort of a snapshot that's cumulative and monthly. On the left-hand side is a chart from last year, really through the 8th month of the year. And you can see we went in between 92, 94, but starting in February, March, we dropped down to 87. And at the end of the year, we were right at about 91 or 92% for a percentage point. In 1920, we were between 95 and 96%. In the current year, sort of the same trend, a little bit better, but in January and February, we started to see a drop, 89 and 88%, and that affects our whole attendance across the district for the final ADA, and I'll review that as we move through. So that's something we're watching, communicating with the principals and reviewing that, but that does affect our revenue. So as we talk about ADA, enrollment's up about 220 from the first day of school. Current ADA and attendance is down relative to 1920 and what we're currently funded at. We're currently funded using the governor's 3-year average. So it's not on our actual ADA, but it's actually on a calculated ADA, technically relief that the governor's provided, the legislators provided to districts. Next year in 23-24, we'll be funded. We won't have that caveat is not in the budget at this time. And so what you have is a 3-year average, which is the 3-year average of our actual ADA. That's not good for us relative to funding. Or you use the current or the prior year ADA. And right now, based on our enrollment projections, our ADA will be just a little bit higher than where we are this year. And that's a good thing, but it's still not very much. And then we need to watch the legislation in the LCFF calculator, and we also need to watch our unduplicated count. So looking at that, if we summarize in a different way, here's a lot of information on this chart. And if we look at the bars first, the gray bar is what our actual ADA is. That's our reported ADA. That's what we collect and report to the state. And really that starts several years ago. And you can see 1920 is the third set of bars from the left. The green bar is actually the funded ADA. That's actually what we got funded for. So you can see in those first 3 years up there, our funded ADA was essentially our actual ADA because it was basically using the LCFF calculator, and that was prior to COVID. You can see in the fourth set of bars there, the yellow bar, in 2021, we weren't required to report ADA. The governor held us harmless to 1920. So you can see the green bar, the funded ADA is what we got in 1920. The yellow bar is about what our guess is, because we didn't collect ADA. We collected attendance, but we didn't compile and report it. We weren't required to. And then the black bar, of course, is actually what our enrollment is. And the third bar there. So if you look at the next year, which was 2 years ago, 21-22, you can see our actual ADA was really low. Our funded ADA, which is the green bar, was the same as the prior year. We were held harmless. And you can see our enrollment grew just a little bit, but our ADA for that year was much lower than the funded. So we got a better deal, technically, based on the held harmless clause. In 21-22, actually 23-24, 22-23, which is this year, which is the set of bars just one from the right, you can see our actual ADA is still lower than what the funded ADA is. So we're still, the governor's held harmless, it still helps us, and we get about 70 kids more than what our actual ADA is. And you can see our enrollment this year is much higher. That's because our ADA, our percentage of enrollment, or percentage of attendance, is still lower than where we were back in the first 3 years. Projecting next year, you can see we're projecting enrollment growth of about 100, maybe 150 kids. But you can see based on about a 93% attendance rate, we're going to have our funded rate is we're projecting our funded rate and our actual rate be the same. So we'll actually be funded on our actual ADA next year, but it's only about 40 kids over where we're funded this year. And just remember that as we come along. And if we look at next year in 23-24, 1% ADA is about 96 students, and that's about $986,000. So every percent ADA that we increase is almost $1 million for us. And right now we're projecting about a 93% ADA based on the history that we've seen over the last 3 years and what happened this year, technically coming out of the COVID. So when we look at that, due to lower ADA and the fact that we're not growing in ADA, that means when we turn the page, all we have is the COLA that the state's giving us. In the past, if we look at those first 3 sets of bars, as enrollment grew, so did ADA. So not only did we get the COLA growth, we also got a revenue growth because we had growing ADA. We had 100 or so kids every year, which is over $1 million or more each of those years that was beneficial to us. So when you turn the page and you have to add costs to the budget, those costs come out of just the COLA, not the additional revenue growth that you get from ADA. And that's important because when we turn the page, the turning the page really we've usually talked about is STIRS and PERS, step and column, and special ed. Now we have to pay attention to the new staff that we're adding, additional costs that we're projecting out of special ed. Our liability costs continue to go up yearly, and we also are adding staff next year because we have to staff based on our enrollment, not on our attendance rate. So we're projecting that. We'll talk about those things. So as we look at those assumptions in terms of what happens, and these are costs just to turn the page, is we know that in revenue we have COLA, ADA, and UPP really are the drivers for our revenue. And right now, we haven't seen ADA growth in the last 3 or 4 years, so all we've seen is a COLA. For the expenditures, those things that cost by turning the page, their step and column next year is projected about $980,000 just for the staff that move up and move across columns. The STIRS and PERS is about $270,000. That's a better for us because there's no STIRS increase projected next year at this point. That can always change, but right now we're not seeing that. Right now, at the last meeting, you approved 8 additional staff. That's about $900,000 we add to the budget by turning the page because of our enrollment growth, not for ADA. Special education costs. At first interim, we talked about the increasing costs in special education, and we moved about $1.5 million of those costs into one-time money. Those will have to come back to the unrestricted budget as a contribution, so that's a turning the page cost for next year. And we also have the increasing costs in special ed because of the rates that we've seen and the costs that we've seen. Right now, we're projecting just a cost increase to special ed about $1 million. Of course, we're going to be monitoring that closely as to build the budget. And lastly, the additional staffing, which we talked about before. The other piece at the bottom is we have sub-cost utility liability costs that we need to pay attention to right now. Those things are high, and we need to monitor those. Those things could go up, or they could stay the same, or they can go down. Those are the things we need to monitor as we do that. But my point in looking at really this slide, as we move forward, we're in a new reality as a district relative to those first 3 years. And we need, as we start to see ADA growth increase in enrollment, we'll start to see revenue growth from ADA, and we're not going to see that right now. We're projecting about 40 new kids next year in ADA growth. That's about $400,000 or $500,000, and it doesn't really cover much of the cost of turning the page that we really need to pay attention to.
Robin, is what you're trying to say, just to put it in different words, is we might have 150 more students, but we're only going to get money for 40 of them?
Yes.
But we're still going to have to pay all the costs for that?
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Pay the cost for staffing all those kids.
Okay.
And the other things that go along with just doing business in the district. But it's something we're monitoring very closely, publicly, and working with our employee groups and staff, just monitoring those things. So other assumptions to review. At first interim, COLA, And really, I'll look at 23, 24, and 24, 25, no changes to the current year. The COLA at first interim, which is really the adopted budget, was about 5.38% next year. And that was built into all the assumptions all the way back starting in June and the work we did with settling negotiations, et cetera. In January, the governor released his budget and stated that, well, he's going to increase that COLA to 8.13. So that's not 8.13 in new money. That's about 2.75% in new money as we work through that process. Next year, in 24-25, the following year, he's decreased the COLA down to 3.54, 0.6 negative. That's a reduction, and it affects the multi-year. One of those increases the funding just a little bit. The other one decreases the funding in the multi-year, which we'll see a little later. And the TK add-on STRS and PERS, really I want to point out is that, the governor has added, and it's been built into our budget, what the TK add-on costs are, because he's rolling out TK, and those things, that program has costs, so he funded some of those. STRS, there's no change in STRS at this point, at this time, but if you're watching the market drives the revenue for STRS, so we'll have to watch that closely. And PERS is starting to increase more than we projected at even at first interim, and that's from the governor. And that's just a review of that slide. You can see when we came last year, this year, STRS and PERS was about 1.5 million. That was in this year's budget, already included. Next year, the STRS and PERS is just 270, as long as that doesn't change again, and we'll have to monitor that closely. I'm concerned about STRS, but right now there's no noise out there, but they're their own board, and they'll have to make a decision here pretty soon. ADA, if we look at ADA, if you just look at the middle three bars, 22, 23, what we budgeted this year, we budgeted about 89.78, and that's actually based on what happened in the prior years. The actual funded ADA was 89.39 because of how the LCFF calculator works and how the governor and that actually worked out. So that's the actual there, and that's what we're actually funded for this year. That we noted at first interim. Our actual ADA right now at this time is 88.92. So you can still see we're about 40 kids under what the funded ADA is. So we have to make that up before we start to see new revenue. So next year, when you look at next year, right now we're projecting ADA of about 89.95. And you can see that's about 40 kids over where we are right now. And it's definitely better than we have been before. And it's pretty close, a little bit higher than what we were in 1920, and that's a good thing. But again, we need to watch that, and that's projected that's projected at an ADA of 93%, which is about just a little bit higher than where we are this year. And we'll update as that we see more enrollment and more attendance data as we work through the year and bring the budget back to you in June. Really quickly, the LCFF is funded on a per pupil amount. And so looking at 23-24, if you look at 23-24, if you look at the second line down, that's sort of what the projected funding is for next year. So K3 students get about 11,500. For 4 through 6, we get about 10,900, and for 7-8, we get about 10,928. And there's reasons for all that, and that's how we're funded. Not for comparisons, but we do that. Liberty gets about 12,900 for every high school student they get. If we were Liberty with our enrollment and their per pupil amount, we'd get $18 million more than what we have right now as a district if we were Liberty. And so they have more money per pupil than we do. Again, 180A is about 96 right now, and that's about $986,000. So we're looking at the unrestricted budget, so looking at this year. Revenues up just about $418,000. And I'll talk about that in just a second. Expenditures up about 1.2 from first interim. Revenue to expenditures, we're deficit spending a little bit more by about $800,000, and therefore our ending balance is down by $834. And really, revenue's up for a small amount. We added about 200 kids to our unduplicated count that we didn't report at first interim. We didn't have that reporting done. So that's really the revenue for LCFF. And then the other revenue came really from local and donation accounts. On the expenditure side, about 1.25. A lot of that is material and contract services that sites have done. If you remember, we were in COVID. Sites had a hard time just because of COVID and the sicknesses and the illnesses out there affecting everyone, being able to spend any money on what we're doing every day, they're starting to do that and starting to use some of the money that they've been holding on, and that's starting to increase our budgets on that side. And the services, and that's true for services and contracts. And again, we're deficit spending just a little bit more than where we were at first interim. Sorry. So when you look at the MYP, really looking at this slide on 22-23, if you slide down to the revenue to expenditures, we're deficit spending by about $1.3 million, and then there's about $1 million left at the ending balance after we take care of all of the required, the 4.25, and most of that is assigned. It's really LCFF dollars, LCAP dollars that are funded specifically at sites and centrally. In 23-24, based on the COLA that I reported above and building in all the expenditure assumptions that I shared above, we are not deficit spending at this time next year and are by the tune of about 2.1 to the positive. That's positive, which means our ending balance goes up, and the assigned happens at the bottom down there, about $3 million growth. And you can see in 24-25, because that continues, it's a little better out there. But remember, any expenditure we add to 23-24 also reduces the balance in 24-25. And another way to say that is, let's just say that we add $1 million in expenditures in 23-24. Those are ongoing expenditures, so those show up in 24-25. So they would reduce the ending balance in both of those years as we do that. Looking at the restricted budget, again, the revenue up just a little bit, mostly in donation accounts and a little bit of federal revenue. Expenditures up about 1.5, really because we're realizing expenditures in ELOP and special ed costs, as well as the many other programs that we have that have costs that go along with working with our one-time funds. Deficit spending, we are not deficit spending because our revenue is much higher. I'll point out our revenue this year is really because we had about $12 million in one-time block grant money we got really at the end of June, early July, that we recognized at first interim. And so that's one-time money, and we'll be spending that over time. And so we'll start to see that as deficit spending in the out years. And so you see the ending balance goes down just a little bit, basically because of our expenditures increased. So revenue's up about about 359,000, and expenditures up about 1.5, mostly because of working through completed our contingency language. So some of those costs showed up on the restricted side, and then we had some increase in service agreements relative to local and some of the work that we're doing with our block grants and ELOP. For the multi-year, you can see that what I want to point out here, if you look at the revenue, this year our revenue is $39.1 million, and the following year they jump down to 23. That's because the block grant, we don't get the block grants in the out year, so our revenue goes away. But you see our expenditures sort of technically, our contributions to special ed, you can see go up $1 million a year at this time. And then if we look at the expenditures, the third line down, you can see our expenditures start to drop off because some of the one-time money that we're spending this year will drop off next year, and that'll get trued up and cleaned up as we work through the budget development. And you can see the ending balance goes down over time because that one-time money goes away as revenue, but the expenditures continue, and we'll have to true that up. So when those dollars go away, all of those expenditures will go away as well, and we have a 2 or 3 year plan to work through some of those funds. As a district, districts have other funds. So most of what we just talked about was Fund 01. We also have 8 other funds, 13, 17, all there. So essentially 13 is our cafeteria fund. So we run our cafeteria through a separate fund. And you can see that's healthy because we're feeding every kid. And so that's reflecting the revenue and the expenditures. Our non-capital 17 is really the furniture set aside that we have that actually came out of when Prop 13 passed, and we didn't have enough money to build furniture or supply furniture for school, and the board at that time set some money aside for the next school. 20 is the post-employment benefits, and that's the money that that we have not made a contribution to, but we made 3 or 4 years of contributions, and that pays the funds when we have retirees that have spent 20 years in the district. They have some benefit options, and that's what covers those costs. Right now, we're paying it as we go, but as our retirees increase and the cost of those costs go up, we'll start to withdraw from this fund to reduce the impact on the general fund. 21, 25, and 35, the next 3 are building funds. So 21 is actually Measure B. That shows the revenue and the expenditures in Measure B that's going on. And the revenue is really reflective of we sold the bond this year. And that's really the revenue from there and interest. You can see expenditures up, and we'll see that budget decline over the next 3 years as we finish the school. The capital facilities, the developer fees. So every time someone builds a home or expands on a home, there's developer fees that go along with that. So that's our beginning balance, and much of that's going to be used on the new school over the next 2 years. You can see revenue is we've generated this year, we're projecting about 1.2 in developer fees, and you can see expenditures are up because that's going to go into building the new school. It's a combination of Measure B and developer fees to build the school. The third one is the hardship money. That's the funding we received to plan for the new school. So that's going into all the architectural fees and planning the new school, and you can see those fees will be used up this year. The capital projects is money that the district earned when they sold the old Brentwood Elementary that turned into the alternative ed for Liberty. And so that money set aside to be used specifically on facilities. We're using that. And then we have a bond interest, and that's just an account that we have to track on our end, but really it's fund at the county. The county manages and pays off the bond payments, principal, and interest. So what we need to watch in closing or in summary, we really are going to pay attention to the ADA and attendance practices that's going on in the district and enrollment that goes along with that. Monitor the use of one-time funding, both in covering deficit spending and just how we're using it. Pay attention to our staffing, our sub-costs, special education, utilities, health and welfare, and insurance relative to how those costs will fall out for the rest of the year and what we're projecting for next year. The governor releases may revise in May. Right now, my term is the indicators are neutral. We know the economy is doing some weird stuff. Right now, all indicators from the people that monitor this at the state level is the legislatures are focusing on a lot of other things, and they're going to try to keep education where it is right now. We'll see what happens. And really, any new money that's available to districts needs to come to us as an ongoing base funding. So I present the second interim. The second interim is presented to you The second interim is presented to you tonight for consideration and approval. Be glad to answer any questions.
I don't have any questions, but thank you very much, Robin. As always, detailed and
Very
on
thorough.
point. So,
Yes.
anybody else?
Trustee Dudek, you have any questions? Look, you have something on your mind? No? Oh, okay. I thought you had
Oh,
something.
no, not at all for a change.
I do have one question, and I'm sorry, I know it's late. That thorough report. I just had a question when you mentioned about the deficit spending that we have right now, went from 500K to negative 1.3 million, but that next year we're no longer deficit spending in the unrestricted budget. Where is that money coming from next year? So we're no longer deficit spending
That's a great question. And it looks at, if you look at the revenue on this one, if you look at 22-23 to 23-24, on the unrestricted budget, the total revenue goes from 96 this year to 105 next year. That's because the COLA, when you look at the budget this year compared to the budget next year, the COLA of 8.13 increases our base revenue.
Got it.
Our expenditures is what I talked about earlier, is we have our current expenditures that we roll forward. Then we have to increase the expenditures based on turning the page. And so those expenditures are really on the second line. So we go from 76 to 80. And so that's not the same as the revenue increase, but it's what we have to monitor. It's technically what gives me more gray hair. Okay. Because as those things change, it's affected by a lot of different things. And honestly, because of our ADA story right now, the story that is currently on paper, and our enrollment trend and the cost of turning the page, there's a lot of moving parts that we have to monitor. And, 20 slides to cover that in great deal is to try to do that in summary so I don't put you all to sleep, but at the same time, give you enough information, what's going on, and so we're monitoring.
Okay. So what stands out to me is COLA is really important for us right now.
Yes.
And it's pretty much the saving grace at this juncture. Okay, I don't have any other questions.
Robin, wasn't there talk that they were going to increase the developer fees?
They did, and we went through the
they did.
process. On our action, well, remember that when they increase developer fees, it's at the state level, so it ends up being an amount that seems like a lot, but when it comes to us, it increases our developer fees by maybe $1 a square foot. So it matters, because I'm going to say I'll take every dollar, and we continue to monitor that and review whether we can do level 1 or level 2 fees, which we're looking at again. But yeah, so they did increase it, and we took action back in June for the developer fees, and we updated our rates starting in October.
And I know I brought this up before, but if it's an excused absence, we still get the ADA money. We do not.
No, so one of the biggest challenges that changed in public schools years ago, and is, you remember when we were kids, most of us, we would bring in notes, right? And those would count as days. That's not true anymore. So when you think of what's happened in the last several years, right, is we have part of the state that's telling us and requiring us that if students are sick, that they have to stay home for a certain length of time, 5 to 10 days. The other part of the state won't pay us for those days. So even though we have classes for them, if a student misses 10 days, that's $500. So that we lose. And so our attendance rates are much lower. And as a result, we're getting much less money. I think one of the things that's unique to our district is about 75% of the districts in the state are in declining enrollment. So they're losing students. And so the way that the state tried to protect districts is they said, we won't drop you any lower than you were last year. But for us, because we're growing, we're having to add staff, we're having to add programs, we're spending more money on electricity and materials, but we're not getting any more money because we're losing attendance, right? It's going forward. So that's the biggest challenge that we're facing. That's why Robin says this is a new era for us. We haven't had this before. We've always gotten more money because we've grown, but because students aren't coming to school as often, we're not keeping up.
And is that trend steady, climbing, as far as our percentage of attendance right now?
When we look at it, what I see is we're technically at the same rate of attendance last year, which was really not much better than the year before. So we're seeing some positive trends, and the fact that we have enrollment growth, even at a lower ADA, we're starting to see a little growth in enrollment. If we have to be careful in terms of what we do, and one of the things is, if we see better attendance between now and the end of the year, it'll affect, what we bring back in June. But right now we're not seeing it. And the other thing that's really important is that AXA, CSBA, CASBO, the employee groups represented at the state are all telling the same story to legislatures. Is the districts that are declining have a different issue. The districts that are the district like us are really affected relative to how we're funded by ADA, and the times are different, and we need to look at that carefully. But there's only so much money to go around, and there's a lot of interest at the state. So right now the trend is they're trying to hold us where we currently are projected without cuts, but that's easy to say right now in March. And there's a lot can happen between now and June, especially with the way the market's going, and the fact that we won't have tax revenue information really until October or later. And it's a really interesting time for us, and there's a lot of moving parts we have to pay attention to, and it changes on a daily basis.
Great.
I'll make them.
I was just going to say thank you, Rob.
Yeah, thank you. So this is an action for the board. So if there's no further questions, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the second interim report.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Moving on to item number 10. Thank you again, Robin. Moving on, agenda item number 10.6, board update and feedback on the LCAP progress and process.
Yeah, so this is a standing item that's been on for the last several meetings, and it's just to keep you updated on where we are. So in your packet, you will see, again, the timeline. You'll see the minutes from both of the strategic action planning committees, and thank you, Trustee Dow Jensen, for being a part of that. We appreciate your time in that. And then you'll see the updated draft goals based on all that input. And so that information will now go back out. If there's no further comment from the board, we'll go back out to parents and stakeholder groups and community groups to get more feedback, and then it'll come back to us, and with the ultimate hope of approving those in June as we go forward.
Great.
No questions, comments? All right. Moving on to item number 10.7, the approval of resolution 2023-07.
Yeah, as you know, board, we have to come to you before March 15th if there's any layoffs certificated or classified. We came to you last month with a layoff for the general intervention aides. And in this particular case, it is a layoff for Guerin Elementary School, a reduction in computer lab aid, and a reduction in employee child daycare. And that is due to just a decrease in the use there.
All right, this is an action. Any questions or comments? If not,
I move that we approve item 10.7, resolution number 2023-07.
I second.
all right, I have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Moving on to item number 10.8, BUSD board meeting YouTube data.
Yeah, so this was a request last time to bring this data back. And so this is there for you to see. I want to thank Nicole Clevin for putting this together, as she always does. She did a fantastic job doing it and making it clear. And always, as always, I want to thank Eric and Robert for all of their work on in continuing to be our tech crew back there and putting this together. But this is there for your information.
Yes, thank you. I asked for this information. I was slightly pleasantly surprised that we did have folks that were taking advantage of the YouTube videos and channel to view our board meeting. So thank you. And perhaps there's an opportunity on our social media, like Facebook page, prior to board meetings, maybe reminding folks that we have a board meeting coming up. So that way we can probably get more folks to join virtually if they're not aware. So just reminding folks that we do have board meetings, and they are available to be viewed live and recordings via our Facebook page if possible.
I can look into that.
All right, perfect. Thank you. All right, so now moving on to agenda item number 11, any board member comments or future agenda items? All right, none. Then I will get a motion to adjourn our meeting.
So moved.
All right. Motion, we're good. All right, motion, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, everybody.